Every player is limited by something, whether it's speed, arm strength, exit velocity, maybe it's confidence or even exposure. And here is the truth. You simply can't fix it if you can't find it. I played 7 years of pro baseball, 3 years at the D1 level, played in a World Baseball Classic, and have helped over 200 student athletes. You might be asking yourself, what is the difference maker? We've finally pinpointed this very one thing, which is typically holding each player back. Then we build a plan around it. Most families and players are working hard, but simply at the wrong thing. Stick around because at the end of this video, I'll show you how to find the number one thing your son must fix. All right, so let's talk about some limiters for most high school baseball players. Most high school baseball players are limited by sometimes mechanics, sometimes it's their mentality, sometimes it's exposure, or maybe even confidence. So let's kind of break down those one by one. So number one, mechanics. So mechanics, this is not typically the number one limiter for those serious high school baseball players, because typically the mechanics are good enough. And when I say good enough, guys, I've been able to play 7 years of pro baseball, and there were plenty of players that didn't have necessarily the best mechanics. The best mechanics meaning, you know, obviously they swing the bat the way that they're supposed to. They know how to get things going as far as on their lower body, making sure that they're able to create that separation. These are all things that obviously the high level player doesn't need a reminder on how to do these things, right? Because typically those high level players already have a good understanding of where their mechanics lie. So it's not necessarily the number one limiter, but I'd say for a good chunk of your average high school baseball players, yes, there's going to be a limit of your mechanics, or maybe in your power production, meaning, you know, yes, you might be a little bit undersized. Maybe you're 5'10" as a junior, maybe you're a little bit more quick twitch, but you're not able to develop that strength, that power behind the bat to be able to hit those doubles and home runs. So that's a limiter that I see a lot, probably more than on the mechanical side, is the limiter of that was not good. The limiter of the power side of things, and that's your real like player development side of things, which kind of ties into the mechanical aspect as well. All right, now let's talk about the mental limiter, which is really neglecting the mental game. Guys, baseball is, what was it he said? It's 90% physical, the other half is mental, right? Or something like that. I might have butchered that quote up, but ultimately what that quote embodies is, you know, making sure that we take care of the mental side, because guys, there's going to be times where you go 0 for 4. No, you're good. There are going to be times where you go 0 for 4 and you squared up every single, and I mean every single pitch that's thrown your way. So these are the things that, like, to be honest with you guys, like, it's okay if you square up and you hit 3 line drives to the third baseman or the shortstop and you hit it 110 miles an hour off the bat. Like, did you necessarily, or did we do anything necessarily wrong in that situation? Typically, no, right? Like, typically we did not do anything wrong. We're a solid hitter, and we did what we needed to do at the plate to be able to get the result we're looking for, right? So these are the things that, if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to know how to deal with this failure. And if we're not ever creating these mental frameworks to overcome some of our struggles, what are we going to be doing, right? What are we going to be doing when the you-know-what hits the fan, and you know, we're 0 for our last 15, we don't know how to get a base hit anymore, and we're really thinking to ourselves, is this what a slump feels like? Is this what it really feels like being in professional baseball, having a slump? Well, first and foremost, I want to really define what a slump is, because I've been able to live professional baseball for 7 years, and it was the craziest thing. One of my great buddies in pro baseball, he was in the same draft class as myself, and he was a California guy. He got a hit in his very first professional at-bat. Congratulations to him, right? But then he proceeds to go 0 for his next 45. Guys, 45 at-bats. 45 at-bats without a hit. And some of these high school baseball players go 0 for 4 thinking they're in a slump. Guys, you're not in a slump if you go 0 for 4. It's just simply not true. These are the areas that I wish you guys just understood a little bit more on. You're not in a slump by going 0 for 4. You're simply not in a slump. Don't think that you are. These are just the things that you have to mentally overcome if you're trying to play, of course, a high level of high school baseball, whether you're on varsity or you're trying to play Division I baseball. These are the mental frameworks that we need to make sure that we can overcome. We have that confidence, which I'll get to here in a second, that we have the ability to overcome these struggles. Now, let's talk about confidence, right? Because confidence, it's a tricky thing. And I've always loved to say confidence is a byproduct of the hard work. And the hard work that's going to happen, if I can ever just chip the ball onto the green, that would be nice. Confidence comes from an absurd amount of hard work where success is almost guaranteed, right? Make an abnormal amount of hard work and I'll show you a confident person, right? Make it just so ridiculous, guys. Don't even put the question mark at the end of your work. If you put a question mark at the end of your work, you're probably not going to feel super confident. It really dates me back to when I was in 2nd grade, spelling test. I'll never forget the feeling of feeling confident going into a spelling test. And that feeling that I got the spelling test on a Friday, I believe it was, and I would just zoot through it, right? I would typically be the first one to hand it in. But if I didn't do the proper homework, if I didn't do the proper preparation, and I maybe gave 80% and mentally I knew I was unsure of certain areas, guys, I did not feel confident in that spelling test whatsoever. So these are the things that I want you to understand when it comes to baseball. Like if you're going to a private lesson once a week and you're not taking any other swings throughout the week, and you have high school practice 4 days out of the week, and you don't do anything else beyond that in these shadows, what I like to call. Guys, if you're not doing anything in the shadows, how in the world are we going to be expecting to get better in our game? Guys, you have to be doing stuff in the shadows by yourself, alone, to be able to really see that progress. And if you're not able to ever take that initiative and do your work on your own, you're not going to feel confident. And whose fault is that? Is that your mom's fault? Is that your dad's fault that you don't feel confident? Yeah, your mom and dad might take the ownership of not feeling confident, and maybe they feel like it's their responsibility on why Johnny isn't super confident. When the matter of fact is, your player needs to be putting in the work. Johnny, if you're listening to this, right, the player, I like to always just go with Johnny for whatever reason. If the player is ever listening to one of my videos, or this video in particular, it is your responsibility to be putting in that work so you can feel confident, so you can start seeing the progress, so you can start to really embody this professionalism of a baseball player. And guys, you don't have to be a pro to embody that professionalism of a baseball player. For example, I was a little bit of a weirdo in high school. I would wear literally a button-up, long sleeve shirt in Sarasota, Florida, where it was like literally 100 degrees, and I'd wear a tie as well, right, on game day. Because this is just the professionalism that I always loved thinking about baseball, guys. And that's the thing that a lot of people just don't understand, is like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if we're slacking in one area, whether it's team practice or private lessons or taking the initiative to do it our own, we're probably going to slack in other areas as well. So real quick, let's talk about the limiting factor of exposure, because exposure talks about recruiting, about kind of the skill development, the physical development, or recruiting strategy, right? So a lot of you guys probably just don't even simply have a recruiting strategy, and you don't feel comfortable or confident in what that plan looks like in the future. So if you were to blindfold yourself, right, and you're trying to hit the bullseye, let's just say the camera is the bullseye, and I've blindfolded myself, and let's say someone spins you around a couple times, you might be shooting over here trying to hit the bullseye when the bullseye is over here, right? So you have no plan, you have no strategy, you can't see the future ahead of you because you've never gone through this recruiting process. Maybe you're the oldest kid in your family, and maybe you just, as a parent, maybe you just simply just don't know what those resources look like for your son to be able to get seen, get that exposure from college coaches. So of course, building out that strategy, making sure that we have a plan in place and we're not just blindfolding ourselves expecting to find success. So that's probably one of the bigger areas as well, as far as a limiting factor in why your son isn't able to play college baseball, or maybe won't ever play college baseball. It's an important stat. 7%, only 7% of all high school baseball players will play in college, and even less, 2% will play D1 baseball. And that just means playing at the D1 level, making a roster at the D1 level. That does not mean actually starting for that respective D1 university or program, right? So these are the numbers that we have to take into account. And if we can find that small advantage, well, That's exactly what I do as far as helping my students out within my Mendoza Baseball Academy. I teach them the triple play with the physical, mental, and recruiting. And if you want to learn a little bit more about what my program has to offer and if your son is even eligible to work with me, you can watch this full video on the screen right now. Or if you're interested in working one-on-one with me and you want to take those next steps, you can schedule an eligibility review down below in the description.